So you're doing some pulls on the current banner that just came out yesterday, and you get 5-star Furina. Now, in yesterday's video, we looked at her basics, how her skill works, how her burst works, how her entire kit kind of works. And in this video, we are going to look at later game stuff, right? Like the artifacts that you really want to try and get, the substats, the teams that she's good in. This is going to be her artifact grinding hell video. So we are going to look again at the Furina that I am using, which is my own Furina, and we are going to real quick touch base on her build before we get into the teams. My Furina is level 90 out of 90 with 36,891 HP, 1200 attack, EM 0, I need to get that up. Her crit split 45.6 over 161.2, ER 175.6, and I do have a Hydro Goblet on her. For weapons, I am running a level 80 R3 Fontaine fishing weapon. I might have said Fontaine crafting weapon in the other one. 4-piece golden troop. C1. Wait, what? Oh, wait. I forgot to change my background over to today's video. I was still looking at yesterday's. Okay. Now let's try it, because that stuff didn't change. C1, I did get C1 yesterday pulling on her banner, which we will talk about her constellations later on. Her talents 1, 10, and 8. So we're gonna go look at the team that I typically run my Furina in, and that is going to be Furina, Dia, Kazuha, and Benny. Yes, I am an on-field Dia player. I do have C3 Dia. Now, this team works really well because Furina and Benny work together super well, especially with a character like Dia that wants the attack buff and Pyro Infusion from C6 Benny. So what we can do is we can use Furina to summon her minions, get everybody's HP down, use her burst, use Benny's burst to then give the healing around to give Furina fanfare points, as well as buffing on-field character being Dia. Kazuha's going to be doing the grouping, Kazuha's going to be doing the swirling and the VV shredding. This team is very good. I use this team in the Abyss every single time. Whether or not I want Dia to be getting the vapes or Furina to be getting the vapes with Kazuha's VV shred depends on the enemy, right? If I'm fighting something like what was in the last Abyss? The 3 samurai guys, I can never remember their name. I gave Dia the VV swirl because one of them was cryo and I needed that melt. So if I'm in a team or if I'm fighting enemies in the Abyss where I want Furina to get the damage bonus, I just alter my rotation slightly. So that way Kazuha is VV shredding Hydro instead of Pyro. Now the good thing about this team, and we'll kind of touch on it a little bit later as well, you can take Dia out and put in any Pyro character, any character that you want to be your main on-field. I say Pyro because I do have C6 Benny, so if I put like Kaching in here, it won't work. If I put anybody in here that would not want the Pyro infusion, it won't work. Gaming, phenomenal in this team. Something else is that I do plan on taking Kazuha out of this team and putting Cloud Retainer in once Cloud Retainer has her rerun, and doing Plunge Dia, and then Kazuha will be free to go to another team. But the relationship between Furina and Benny is really good because of that healing and that draining with how Furina's burst works. Now at C1, it's even better because you start with 150 fanfare points on Furina, and you increase the amount of fanfare that you can get to 400 instead of 300. C2 allows for the amount of fanfare that you're accumulating, or the rate that you're accumulating it at, to skyrocket, as well as giving Furina a max HP buff, meaning that she's going to be dealing more damage and getting more fanfare points quicker. So her C1 and her C2 are phenomenal. They're super good. I'm not going to go for C2 on this one. I'm only going to stick at C1. But if you're doing pulls and you get C2 Furina is phenomenal. So now we're going to look at her actual artifacts. There are a couple different, or I guess four kind of different sets that you can run on Furina, but we're not going to touch too much on the other ones besides Golden Troop. Golden Troop is your standard Furina artifact set because it increases your elemental skill damage, and it increases it even more when they're not on the field, and that's how Furina operates, right? You want to summon her little minions and then take her off the field, so that way they are doing a ton of damage, which this is really good at. If you are not wanting to do this standard Golden Troop build, then you can run like 4-piece Tenacity, which will get up your HP as well as giving an attack buff to your team and a shield strength every 3 seconds whenever your skill hits. So she can trigger that, she can keep that triggered. I think there is a chance that she cannot, like she'll have like a slight delay between the 3 seconds, but most of the time she should be able to keep it triggered all the time. Another option would be like 2-piece Tenacity, 2-piece VG to get her HP up. This would be another damage one, like a much more of a hybrid build where you're doing damage and buffing. If you're doing 4-piece Tenacity, you're mainly going to be doing buffing over that. You're not going to get as much damage from running like Golden Troop or 2-piece. The fourth set, Golden Troop, 2-piece, 4-piece Tenacity. The fourth set is going to be Clam, where you're going to get up your healing bonus and you're going to be doing physical damage based on the healing. This is going to be specifically for Furina, healing Furina. And so in this case, you will never really use your minions. You'll always change stances and do the healing for this. Same thing with, and if you're doing 4-piece Tenacity, you're never going to do the healing. You're going to keep it in her minion form as the whole time. You have to keep them, that limits to what you can do, right? If you're doing like Golden Troop, you can kind of swap over and do like an emergency healing. But in Tenacity, if you swap over to the healing, you just completely lose the buff from Tenacity. In Clam, if you swap over to her damaging, to her minion form, you're never going to set off Clam's 4-piece passive. So you have to make sure that whatever artifact set you choose is going to work well with your team, is going to work well with your playstyle. But those are going to be the 4 options. But we're mainly only going to be talking about Golden Troop. So for her flower, right, we have HP %, which is really good, ER, which is good, crit damage, which is great, attack %, if that had been crit rate, would have been perfect, right? You want HP, ER, crit rate, crit damage. I want some EM because I'm causing vaporize reactions with Furina, so I would want some EM. And for all of these sets that we talked about, it's kind of going to be the same substats. For her plume, crit rate, energy recharge, crit damage, HP %. Really, really good substats. A lot of it rolled into HP %, which isn't necessarily bad, but I could have used some more crit rate, right? If like one of those HP rolls had gone into crit rate, I think it would have been even better. For her sands, HP sands, of course, because that's what her entire kit scales off of. Defense, bad. Flat HP, okay. Crit damage, energy recharge, great. If that defense had been crit rate or EM, even better. Or if that defense had been crit rate, flat HP had been EM, phenomenal. Hydro Goblet. Flat HP, HP %, crit rate, ER. Again, not too terribly bad. If that flat HP had been crit damage, even better. Now, you can run an HP % goblet instead of a Hydro Goblet. It's gonna come down to substats, whichever one is better. They're going to perform very similarly with similar substats, so you wanna go with whichever one you have better. Energy recharge, crit damage, EM, and flat defense. Personally, I like my Hydro Goblet better than this HP Goblet. So I'm gonna go with the Hydro Goblet until I get a better of whatever I can get, right? Since we can't pick the stats, you just gotta deal the deck you were, deal with the hand, use the hand you were dealt. Whatever that saying is. Hey, Floofy. Circlet. I'm running a crit damage because of how some passives, or because of how some weapons and stuff work. Flat HP, attack %, crit rate, HP %. If that had rolled into crit rate, that would have been even better. ER, EM on this would have been great. This is the one that I would be trying to get the EM on because I'm not going to necessarily miss. I don't need a ton of it. Floofy, stop trying to play with that. I don't need a ton of EM. I just need a little bit. So if I could have gotten EM substats here, that would have been really, really good. If you're doing something like 2-piece, or 4-piece Tenacity, you're relatively going to be doing the same stuff as far as wanting the substats. However, with 4-piece Tenacity, you're probably going to want to do the same thing. With 2-piece, same substats. If you're doing Clam, then you're going to want to go HP across the board so that way you can get as much healing as possible. If at any point in these artifacts, if you had a better HP % main stat, you can substitute that in until you get something better. So now we're going to talk about another kind of team that I really think is only doable with Furina, and that is going to be Quick Bloom, a true Quick Bloom team. Not one where you have too much Hydro and you might get a spread or an aggravate reaction. This is purposefully built to allow for about half and half. Furina does such slow Hydro application that, in my opinion, she is the only character currently that can allow for a true quick bloom team. And the way that this is going to work is that we're going to be using Kuki to trigger hyper blooms, Alhaitham to cause spread, Yao Yao as our second healer and danger applicator, and then Furina as our buffer as well as off-field damage. This team is going to output a lot of damage. Yao Yao's healing, which is team-wide healing, is also going to increase Furina's fanfare points, which is going to be great because Alhaitham can use the buff that Furina gives. Kuki, we're not super worried about the damage that comes from aggravate. We really just want her there to trigger hyper blooms. So the way that this team is going to work is that in between Furina's minions hitting the enemy, we are going to be getting aggravate and spread reactions, mainly focusing on spread reactions because our main damage dealer is Alhaitham. And then whenever her minions attack, it is going to produce some blooms, turning off the spread reaction. Kuki triggers the hyper blooms, and then we go back into spread damage. So that is the quick bloom team. We are causing quicken to then do spread and aggravate, and then we are causing the blooms to hyper bloom. If you have a character like Xingqiu or somebody like Yelan that does too much hydro, you're not gonna get spread reactions as often as you would want. In that instance, spread reactions would be a negative because that means that you're not creating as many blooms, right? And your main damage from that is gonna come from the hyper blooms. And this particular team, we're gonna be trying to cause about half spread, half hyper bloom. And I am gonna play it back behind me and kind of slow it down so that way you can see how in between Furina's minions attacking, we are going to get a lot of spread reactions, making Alhaitham do more damage, and then using Yao Yao also to come in and do the team-wide healing to get Furina's fanfare up. So, as you can see, we are going to be getting a lot of aggravate, a lot of spread reactions in there. Once her minions attack and it produces a bloom, we'll hyper bloom it and then immediately go back into the spread damage, not so much focusing on hyper blooms, right? The hyper blooms will be nice whenever they're produced, but other than that, we're going to allow Alhaitham to do a ton of damage with spread reactions. Now, if you are like, man, I really just want to use a different team and not all of that quick bloom crap, right? Because that is a lot of stuff going on. Just take my Dia team, take out Dia, put in anybody else, right? You could do Hu Tao and Yelan. You could do a cryo team, a freeze team. You could do like Furina, Ayaka, Kazuha, and Charlotte. That's a really, really good one. You just got to make sure that you have a healer separate from Furina. You could do a standard plunge team with like Zhao, C6 Faruzan, Cloud Retainer, and Furina. That's what my editor Doggy runs, that his Zhao is freaking insane. And you could take out Zhao and put in Haizo and take out Cloud Retainer and put in Bennett again. You can do so much with Furina, and typically I use Bennett, but any other healer, almost any other healer, can really go in that Bennett slot. So just play around, make sure that you do run a second healer with Furina, and Furina would only be an emergency healer. Now that is going to be it for this video. If you have any questions, do be sure to leave it down in the comments. Myself or somebody else will be sure to answer it, and I'll see you in the next one.